Hello, everybody. We are going to get started. All right, thanks for coming, everybody. Hopefully we'll get a few more people coming in after lunch. We've had a lot more people than this signed up, but so hopefully they're just running a little bit late at lunch and they will come in. So we will kick things off with a video that we put together, and then we'll get into introductions and we'll go from there.
Hi, and welcome to the second annual Pikes Peak Regional Building Open House. We appreciate you joining us today, and we hope you walk away from this class having learned a lot. We'll kick things off with a brief overview of what PPRBD is and what we do here in the Pikes Peak region. PPRBD was started back in 1966 by an intergovernmental agreement, or IGA, between El Paso County and the city of Colorado Springs. As the Pikes Peak region grew, so did we. Today, PPRBD not only services El Paso County and Colorado Springs, but Fountain, Manitou Springs, Monument, Palmer Lake, Green Mountain Falls, and the town of Woodland Park in Teller County. So what do we do? Well, we make sure contractors have the proper licenses to do work here in the Pikes Peak region and ensure all work is done in a code-compliant manner, from plan review and permitting to new construction, remodels, and re-roofs. Our goal is to keep our citizens safe through efficient and the consistent application of adopted codes and standards. We do that by reviewing and inspecting the design, construction, quality of materials, use, and occupancy of all buildings and structures under our jurisdiction.
One of the best things about regional building and the way that regional building operates is the same codes are in place all throughout El Paso County, and the same expectations occur all throughout El Paso County. So it doesn't matter where a building is built, whether it's in the city of Colorado Springs or way out east on the plains, the same criteria applies and the same level of expectations and service is there.
The department is governed by the Regional Building Commission, a three-member governing body consisting of one county commissioner designated by the El Paso County Board of County Commissioners, one council member designated by the Colorado Springs City Council, and one elected official chosen by the other member jurisdictions served by PPRBD. Probably one of the biggest misconceptions about regional building is that we are the city, or we are the county, and that we get tax funding. That's actually not the case. We aren't the city or the county. We are a separate entity, and we don't receive one dime of tax money. Instead, the department is completely funded through permit, plan review, and license fees. With that said, we are proud to say that our fees have not been increased in 11 years, and we have some of the lowest building fees in the state of Colorado. In fact, when it comes to single-family homes, we have the lowest fees in the state, and compared to most of the other building departments, it's not even close.
Our low fees allow people to build and construct things at a reduced cost, and we've been able to increase efficiency throughout the years to be able to match the revenue that we receive. The fact that we can offer outstanding service at a reduced fee over other building departments just makes us that much better, and we're very proud of that here at Regional Building.
It takes everyone in the community to keep our homes, schools, hospitals, offices, retail stores, and other buildings safe for public use. Building codes and safe construction practices help make it all possible. We hope to build on those safe practices today through education. The more informed homeowners and contractors are, the smoother the building process will go, and the safer our community will be. Again, thank you for coming to our open house. We hope you enjoy this class, and we look forward to working with you on future projects.
All right, so as you saw in the video, I'm Greg Dingrando, and I'm the Public Information Officer for Pikes Peak Regional Building. To my left is Rebecca Mulder. She'll be kind of running the show today more so than me. So she is the head of licensing, and she also helps me out with communications. She does a little bit of everything.
I do a little bit of everything. Thank you guys for coming out. And to my left is Luke Sanderson. He is one of our non-compliance inspectors and handles work that's done without permits and any contractor complaints that may come up.
And before Luke gets, I'm going to introduce the rest of the guys in the room as well. Roger Lovell is our regional building official. He's there in blue. John Welton is our deputy building official. And Dan is our IT guy, making sure we don't break anything up here, but he basically makes sure that everything is up and running on the website, which if you guys stick around, he'll be more involved with the navigation of our website. That's coming up in our next class.
Perfect.
Yep. So first thing we want to get started for, we want to show you guys another video. And obviously this class is all about scam alerts and red flags, right? So we kind of pulled a couple of videos for you guys from our local news agencies to kind of hammer home what we're dealing with here in the Pikes Peak region.
Nearly every day now, we hear from so many of you about contractors taking your money and jobs not getting done.
Tonight, we know a lot of homes in southern Colorado will need a new roof after last night's destructive hailstorm. Criminals are already out there right now trying to take advantage of homeowners.
14 families. That's how many people have reported being scammed by roofing following the July 2016 hailstorm. This means these people have waited not 1, 2, but more than 3 years, and their homes sit unfinished.
We often hear about contractors failing to do work they were paid to complete, but this case stands out.
8 months later, she's still trying to get what she paid for.
Any of those look familiar to you guys? There have been plenty of stories like this. This is just a couple that we pulled from our local TV stations' websites. Obviously, our local newspapers have also done a number of stories like this. So this is why you're here, I'm assuming, because of issues like this. So we're going to go through a lot of things today, red flags. We're going to try to help you guys out. So Rebecca's going to get us going through with the PowerPoint presentation portion.
Good afternoon, guys. So we're going to talk a little bit about the various precautions you can take as a homeowner to ensure that your home, one of the most expensive investments you make, stays safe. I know you all have projects that go on throughout the year. And some of the things that you need to think about when preparing for the various projects, re-roof projects, basement finishes, any type of project, that does it require a permit? Who should I hire? Where should I start? These are all good things to remember. And when you're searching out contractors, it's important to remember to get multiple bids. Just going with the first person that knocks on your door may lead you to a problem down the road. So you want to make sure you get multiple bids. You check to ensure that they are licensed and insured to do the work that you are requesting. A lot of times after a big storm, you'll have someone knock on your door, ask you, say, I noticed that you're having some problems or your roof doesn't look compliant. Can I get up on your roof? Especially if you still had the T-lock roof style, and say, absolutely, you need a new roof. By the way, I can do your siding for you. I can take care of those windows. You know, I can do it all for you at a lower cost, at a better cost. And I can make sure that you don't spend a dime of your own money. These are all indications as a homeowner that you should probably check and make sure that that contractor is doing what he's supposed to be doing, or she, by being a licensed contractor in the area. Yeah.
Questions or comments allowed?
Of course.
I'm a contractor, and I came to basically see what was being presented, because that's one of our,
If you don't mind.
thank you. I came to see what was being presented, because that's one of our distinctives is we have a ton of information out there for homeowners to try to help them avoid getting scammed. But getting multiple bids actually is one way that homeowners can really shoot themselves in the foot. Interviewing multiple contractors is a really good idea, but getting multiple bids is a really bad idea, simply because most of the re-roof jobs, or not just re-roofs, but storm damage restoration jobs, are insurance. If a homeowner is choosing a contractor simply based on price, if the homeowner doesn't understand, if it's not an apples to apples comparison, that's where a homeowner can really get themselves into a bind by getting multiple bids, because especially when they're working with insurance, we have this mindset that thinking we have to go with the lowest bid, or we have to go with a bid that meets our insurance, and that's not the case at all.
I would say when getting multiple bids or talking to multiple contractors, it gives the homeowner a perspective to say, am I getting consistent information on that project? Is what the first guy said is wrong with that roof, or with the siding, or to the severity, or is that how the basement has to be done? It's consistent from each contractor, and each time each instance that you get that quote, it can be used as a way to verify that, because regional building won't go out and tell you what's wrong with it until after the permit's pulled. We also, homeowner can also use that not necessarily as a gauge of price for an insurance project, but you can for a re-roof specifically, but you can use it to gauge, to view the differences in the contract. I always tell homeowners, make sure they read the contracts before they sign it. That's part of what I'm going to go over in here. Make sure that you know what you're signing, the warranty, what you're agreeing to, what is required up front. While regional doesn't get into financial side of things, it's always a good idea to make sure that what you're signing, the contract may specifically say you have to give me half up front, or I need 90% up front. So making sure you know what you're signing when you sign it, being cautious and aware before you move forward.
Yeah, and the money up front is a good point, because for re-roofs, it's illegal to collect money up front if materials aren't at the property.
Did you have a question?
A statement and a question. Oh, thanks. No, I won't need that. I can do that too. The statement actually was, I have been for decades a strong advocate of always triangulating your information, at least. I'm looking at the presentation, and there are a few things in there. I found that the BBB is not what it was 20 and 30 years ago. And I have other reasons for not even considering using things such as Angie's List or Home Advisor.
I would agree.
And I'm I even would throw out that there's a lot of the paperwork in legalese, a lot of the stuff from temping in a planning department in another city and working in law offices, I know. But I still got bamboozled after the hailstorms. And I was wondering if you were going to go into a little bit deeper, because it's basically, when I turn around and look at things, I probably could have done a better job GCing that myself, and I know nothing about being a GC, really. So are you going to get to that later in the presentation?
We can, there is a few more slides.
Okay.
As I go through. The reason I have that section here on Angie's List and Home Advisor is to bring awareness to those sites while they are a resource and a service that is provided out there on the internet. You don't want to go strictly off their recommendation. You want to make sure that if they are quoting this contractor as a reputable contractor, that you're doing your own research and verifying that indeed that contractor is qualified locally to do the work that they are soliciting for on those sites. Because those sites are not specific to our region. They are everywhere. So that is the purpose for bringing up those sites. And I would say the same thing would apply for if you were using BBB as a resource, that to come back to regional building to re-verify that they can do what they are promising they can do. A lot of times, especially during a disaster, the contractors try to get as much of that. A lot of the contractors that are attempting to scam you will try to get as many of the jobs as possible, and they may not be qualified to do all of those.
I would just add to that, one thing to keep in mind when you're researching, whether it's through the BBB, Angie's List, or Google or anything, you got to keep in mind that a lot of times some of these are new companies, particularly with re-roofs, and they're coming in, and they do have the right to pull a lot, get a license in our area and work. But a new company wouldn't necessarily have negative reviews because they're brand new, right? So just because someone doesn't have a negative review doesn't make them a good company. Does that make sense? So.
Actually, the trick in my situation was it was not a new company, but they decided to shift gears and do something totally different. And they had a good reputation, either that or my neighbor's license. Yeah. But they shifted gears and whatever, so I'm sorry for interrupting.
That's okay.
Yeah, neighbor referrals are a great way to find contractors, but you still want to do that research. And if you get a contractor through a neighbor, do the same research, even ask for more references beyond that block or that street to ensure that you're getting what you think you're getting. Some of the things that you should be asking your a contractor, whether you seek them out or they seek you out, is, are you licensed? Can I see a copy of that? Are you insured? Will the people on my property be insured under that? Yeah.
We still haven't had our hail damage repaired. We actually had someone come out, one of the local companies that have commercials that have been around forever, and found out that they were subbing the work out. And so when this crew showed up 2 days after they were supposed to be there, they showed up, and I started asking questions about, can I see your insurance, et cetera. That's when I found out that these people basically just they were subbed to this job. The main big company didn't really want to mess with it, and this was before the hailstorm, this last hailstorm. So I'm just trying to figure out how to, we're going through what I thought was a reputable company, but yet they're sending subcontractors out who don't have insurance and don't want to provide any of that. So I was able to actually cancel that contract because they weren't actually doing the job. How do we prevent that? Just like you're saying, they should have a license, but if the main big company that has the license is subbing it, what are our options?
So they are allowed to sub out their work as a licensed contractor for roofers. Many of the companies carry the license, carry the insurance, and sub the labor out. That labor should carry their own supplemental insurance because they don't fall under the workman's comp that the company would carry. So
That was the main thing I asked to see.
So you, as the homeowner, you would want to ask that, if that is the case, to see that insurance to add that extra level of comfort for you.
Asking a contractor to provide a copy of his insurance certificate is no guarantee you're not going to get scammed, because insurance certificates are so easy to counterfeit. The best way to protect yourself is to ask the contractor to have his insurance agent email you or mail you a copy of the certificate. That's the only way you can guarantee you're not going to get counterfeit.
Thank you. Another tactic that we hear a lot when we're dealing with complaints is that there was pressure to sign the contract right then and there during the appraisal or the inspection of the property. So you want to not give in to that pressure to sign the contract. Take your time, do your research, make sure that what you're signing, you feel comfortable signing. You don't want to rush to sign the contract, rush to write them a check, rush to sign over your insurance check if you already have that. Those are all things that you want to take a step back and figure out what's the smartest move going forward.
I would just add that this is true for anything building related. A lot of this is kind of focused on the re-roofs because that's kind of where a lot of these red flags came up. But Brooke, I know you're looking to build a new house, so the same would be true whether you're building new. Anytime you're going with a contractor, don't ever fall victim to the sign it right now, right now, right now. Do that research, take the time. It's going to be worth it.
Yeah, this would definitely still apply for building your own home if you wanted, when you're searching for your subs, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, making sure that they're licensed as well and the contract you sign with them is what you're looking for. A lot of times you'll hear statements like, if you pull the permit as the homeowner, it's cheaper. That's a red flag. If you're going to hire a contractor, they need to be the one to pull the permit. There's no cheaper method for them. It's the same requirements. The process isn't smoother. We make sure that it's consistent and easy to navigate for contractors and homeowners alike. So that should be a stopping point in the discussion for anyone that hears that. You don't need a permit because we're putting it back the way it was. That's another statement that should be a sign for double checking, because while that may be true if you're replacing window for window, like for like, but that is not the case replacing a deck that was destroyed in a hailstorm, replacing your roof. Things of that nature do not go into the like for like, no permit required. So double checking with the building department will make sure that the contractor is compliant. Because just because they say this doesn't mean they don't have a license. It may be a step they're looking to skip. Does anybody have any additional questions so far? Correct. Yeah, if they're saying no money out of pocket for you, they'll take care of the deductible, that your insurance would not be pleased to hear that.
Sorry, we're just recorded.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, if you have a contractor that's offering to pay the deductible in any way, shape, or form, then that's essentially a violation of Colorado SB 38, which states that the homeowner is responsible for the entirety of the deductible. So even if you have a contractor who says, well, if you let me put a sign in your yard, I'll give you $500, that'll help you pay your deductible. And that's very, very common. That still can be considered a violation of SB 38. And so that's just another red flag to watch out for, because that's a very, very common one. That's probably the most common one that contractors use, is we'll help you pay your deductible in some way.
Another thing that we see a lot when dealing with contractor complaints is when we ask for a copy of the contract, they say, well, we didn't have one. He sent me we handshake agreed on it. That makes it very problematic moving forward to help validate the complaint if they were to challenge what you stated, if something did go wrong. So make sure you get what is going on in writing. It's really important to have that documentation and that follow-up. Like you said, the cash deals, it's cheaper in cash versus charge. These are all things to be on the alert for.
So once you have found your licensed contractor to do and perform the work that you were wanting, staying current on your project and viewing all permits, inspections can be done from our website. Searching either the permit number if you're given that, or the address will show all the permits pulled on your house. Once you click into there, you can look at details as far as inspections. You can even look at who is your inspector and contact that inspector directly if you have any questions about anything pertaining to your job or your property.
Yes, you don't have to rely specifically on what the contractor is saying. Everything that our staff does, whether it be a plan review, inspections, the permit, is all viewable on our website, and we can, as well as you can come down and talk directly to one of our staff members. So if something sounds odd, you can verify. If you start seeing a large amount of change orders, which do occur, or unexpected increase in the cost, you can verify whether those require plans. Should there be more action taken with RBD to make sure that that happens? If the original project was a deck, and then you, along the way, decide, I want to extend it longer, or they added a back stairs to get to the backyard, and that wasn't originally designed. You want to make sure that they're going through RBD to get those changes approved, and that your deck is still going to be code compliant.
Just want to reiterate, don't hesitate if you guys have questions to please call us. And we do have a lot of information on our website, and you certainly can go research a lot of these contractors, but we can do that same thing for you over the phone. So if there's a kind of a strange, specific case for you, don't hesitate to call us, and then we can do that work, because we want to help you out the best we can, and sometimes a direct phone call is the best way to do that.
Thank you. Like Michelle, we haven't hired anybody yet to do our old houses in Green Mountain Falls that are old, very old. If we go ahead with a contractor and get started and have a concern before the final inspection, we could still call you?
Of course, yeah, you can
while the work's being done?
Absolutely. If you have any question on the process, what an inspection means when you're reviewing it online, your contractor made a statement that you didn't quite understand, or the inspector said something you didn't understand, you can always come down or call or to go online and get that clarification.
Well, I mean, like, for instance, say I hire somebody tomorrow and they come and start working, and I'm concerned about the company or how they're performing. Could I call midway, or have you got time to get involved?
We can always help. It's better to get those questions and concerns answered ahead of time rather than when the project is at a stopping point and now there's too much contention between contractor and homeowner to get it to an end goal. So if you're having hesitations or questions, you can most certainly use us as a resource to get answers to those questions. We don't mediate disputes necessarily, but we can clarify any misunderstandings you may have based on our plans or our inspections.
One thing I'd just like to share with you, when all the damage happened a year ago in Green Mountain Falls, people were noticing who lived there all the time that there were people coming in that didn't have the correct stuff. And so at our town meetings, that was discussed. And they were encouraging neighbors to report if it looked like it was somebody that was not a reputable person, to turn them in. And I think that was done.
Yeah, anyone that, if you do have a contractor, even if you don't take the bid, say you have a few people come out, you choose one, they are licensed, but one of the contractors that came out and presented you with a bid, you realized wasn't a licensed contractor, you did your research. You can then give that information over to RBD and we will investigate and move forward with that. We have a path for both licensed and unlicensed contractors. Our attorney is in fact sitting right over there. That is Gina, and she handles all of the unlicensed contractors, her and her team, making sure that they get into compliance in one manner or another. So if and when a contractor says, you go down and pull the permit, it's quicker. When you come down, one of the things that you would have to do is attest and sign an affidavit stating you own the home, reside in the home, and you're doing the work yourself. So right there, you're signing a document that's not true. So it puts you in jeopardy. It also makes you, as the homeowner, responsible for that project rather than that contractor. And if something did go wrong, then you, or as the permit holder, is who we would initially look to and say, well, you pulled the permit, you said you're doing this work yourself, what changed? So you don't want to ever put yourself in that situation. If you hire a contractor and the work requires a permit, just have them get that permit. It's a pretty quick process. We have so many ways to get a permit. Most of our permits can be obtained online. If it doesn't require plans, it can be done within 5 minutes. If it needs a plan, depending on the size of the project, it can be done in half a day, couple days. So there's a path for them to get that done effectively and efficiently. If you want to find out if a permit is required for your job, if you're not sure, you can go online. You can use a few different resources, but the one that's the easiest, I think, to navigate, we have a button on our homepage that's called Start a Project, and it will walk you through your project, your jurisdiction. It'll list things that are exempt from permit, items that are general permits that are required, and piece by piece it'll say yes, no, what is required, the turnaround, and it gives you a way to get that information into your hands quickly so that you're an informed homeowner when the contractor is making his proposal. So it's another great resource you can utilize. And if you still are confused or unsure after viewing that, then you can always call or come down.
Is there a place on the website where you just list codes? You need to go through the plan.
You can always reference our RBC, which is our local amendments, and that has a section that does show all work exempt from permit and all our local codes and their amendments that reference the international codes.
Okay, I'm sorry, and I didn't understand. Would I find that through your website or?
Yes, you can download that document. Yes, under code information, there'll be the 2017 PPRBC, and that book will have that information. You're welcome. Oh, yeah.
Just really quick, not only is it a problem if a homeowner is pulling a permit for a contractor, but it's also a problem if a contractor is pulling, sorry, I'll repeat because you're recording, right? It's not only a problem if the homeowner is pulling a permit for a contractor, but it's also a problem if a contractor is pulling a permit for another contractor. We've even been approached by out-of-state contractors asking us if we would pull permits for jobs that they had lined up. They even already had the materials on the roof and everything. So to your point of, checking the licensing of your contractor, make sure that the contractor you've hired is actually the contractor whose name is on the permit.
I think we were twinning a brain because that was going to be right after this video. It was going to be, oh, you're perfect. And so I'll just segue into that. When a contractor pulls a permit on your property, you will receive a state statute letter from Regional Building Department that notifies you that a permit was pulled on your property and by who and for what project. And if the name that's on that paper or the name that you search on our website doesn't match who you contracted with, then you should contact Regional Building Department to find out more information. That's a great point.
We actually had that happen with an electrical contractor. Permit was pulled under different names in the company that was given to us, and it didn't pass the final inspection for a panel upgrade. And so the person who actually license was on there made it right, but we wouldn't have known other than we called the number because it didn't pass inspection, and that's how we found out that the guy doing the work wasn't the guy who had pulled the license. They pulled the permit under his license.
Rebecca, can you explain that a little bit more? Because that is something we see quite often. People receive that letter and then they match up, and then that actually leads to some complaints on down the road.
Yeah, so those instances actually come up more than we'd like. And when we deal with those, we start contractor complaints. So we have a few different types of contractor complaints. One's for pulling permits for unlicensed contractors, doing work without permits, and and doing work without a permit or a license. Those are all different things that are a violation of our code and would be pursued. If you are a licensed contractor and pulling a permit for an unlicensed contractor, that is a violation, and you will be brought before our licensing committee for that. And the unlicensed contractor would be getting a strongly worded letter from our legal team and be required to come into compliance or potentially face legal ramifications through the department. So it's something we do take seriously, and if that does occur, you want to contact us so that we can work with you to get your project finished efficiently and move forward with those complaints so they don't happen to other people.
All right, we're going to show you guys another video as we segue into our next segment.
Just never, ever thought it would happen to us, ever.
Right.
We've seen it before, damaged siding, broken gutters, and roofs half built. Contractors promising work that just never gets done.
I feel home advisors lied to me as a consumer. I feel Dean has lied to me from the get-go, and I just feel like he totally took advantage of me, and I feel like he played me.
All this wood here was supposed to be replaced, and look at this. I mean, it looks like a kid did this. I lose $8,500.
I was so stressed out, I ended up in the hospital.
He still took all of our money.
A lesson well learned the hard way.
So we show you this because this is something we see all too often, and we of course don't want you guys to ever be in these people's shoes, you know, because these are some really bad scenarios, some of which can cost thousands of dollars. So that's why you're here. That's why we're putting on this class. So unfortunately, we also want to walk you through the process. What happens if you do come across, you know, or if you do end up in a sticky situation. So we do want to walk you through that.
So like Greg said, those are bad situations that you don't want to find yourself. That's not a good reason to be on the news. So you want to, if you do end up in one of those situations though, you can contact Regional Building and we can determine whether the situation that you're in does fall into a matter that is something that RBD can help you with. There are instances that unfortunately, RBD doesn't have authority over civil matters, financial only matters, or something that we don't have the authority to work through, and that would have to go through the legal system. A licensed contractor agreed to do something in a specific period of time and he's taking longer than expected, is something that Regional Building, we can't control the time management and the business practices in that instance of a contractor. So that would be something that a lot of times BBB does a lot of mediation with that sort of thing to try to work through that with contractors and homeowners that are having issues on that end. But unfortunately, Regional Building, it's outside of our code. Some of the items that, like I mentioned before, that Regional Building does have jurisdiction over are contractors working without a license, contractors that are doing work outside of their license scope. A lot of times we'll see those companies that are saying, I'll take care of your siding, I'll take care of your roofing, I'll do that electrical upgrade, I can take care of all of it for you. And that's when you should double check and say, that's great. Let me make sure you have all those licenses, because more times than not, they don't, because there is a lot of steps involved into acquiring each license. Now, there are some companies out there that do carry almost every license, but they're few and far between, so you want to do that research and double check that they can deliver on what they're promising. And then additionally, a licensed contractor doing work for another contractor or doing that work without a permit. For some reason, I still end up with issues where I'm bringing in a licensed contractor that's doing the work he's licensed for and not pulling a permit. I don't know why. They carry the insurance, they carry the license, they are doing the work that they're licensed for, and still they don't pull a permit. And that's a problem. And while they could, we can call them and say, get the permit, and they could get that done quickly, it doesn't change the fact that they are in violation. And we want to help not only pursue the complaint to make sure it doesn't happen to someone else, but we want to make sure that your home is done properly and to code. And so if you do end up in a space where you have a complaint submitted, if you go to the next slide, what we need is a copy of the contract and a notarized statement explaining what went wrong. And then we'll take that and review that. If you have any additional supporting documents, if you don't have a contract, if it was a handshake deal, any email communications or anything that you have that can support this gentleman or this woman did this work, said she'd do it, and then didn't follow through, we use that. So while a contract is best and legally the most sound, we also will use other means to try to get to our end result. We work with you to resolve the issue while the complaint is going through, because those do take a bit of time. Unfortunately, our complaints department stays fairly busy, both on the unlicensed and the licensed side. Those complaints go through our licensing committee, whom they meet once a month, and they appear right before we license the new contractors for that year, or for that month. And we do that because it falls into the licensing category, but we also hear those complaints first because it's a good warning to the contractors that are about to obtain their license that you don't want to put yourself into that situation. Follow the code, know what the rules are in this jurisdiction, comply, and the contractors can learn that they can check with us just as the homeowners can, because codes do change. Things shift and adjust, and if they have questions, they should be contacting us and staying on top of that just as much as the homeowners.
You're right.
We had a really interesting situation where we were hired to do a re-roof for a customer, and then they backed out of the contract. We had already purchased the permit, but we forgot to cancel the permit. So the other roofer who the homeowner hired did the work and then told the homeowner to call us and ask us to call it in for inspection. No.
Yeah, that's if that does occur, if you go from one contractor to another, make sure that they switch that permit into their own name. It's a simple process. You just need to go turn in that you as the old contractor and the new contractor can both submit statements saying, yeah, I'm okay with a clean swap and there's no fee. If the other contractor says no, then the homeowner can request to void that permit. It gets voided out and the new contractor will purchase a new permit. So there's a few ways to do that, and making sure you monitor and that the new contractor doesn't begin to do the work until they have switched that permit and purchased that new permit, and they're not working off of the other contractor's permit. So you want to make sure you're double checking that timeline if you're shifting contractors, and the staff here can help you with that.
I think the scenario that you just described is a rare one, though. That certainly does not happen very, very often.
Did you have?
Let's see. I know that codes have been updated recently. I'm just trying to think. We have had a really good assessment of our very old houses from our insurance company, and we have some money. The deductible was deducted already by our insurance company, so that's all fine. If they get into the contractor, comes and we've got really detailed, the guy that came out from State Farm did all these drawings, all this damage here and there and everything. Since they're so old, and are there more code updates on, they would know that, wouldn't they? Roofing and I don't know what else they might run into.
So
if they can't see the damage underneath, for instance.
So when your state farm, or you said state farm,
That was State
when your agent comes, insurance agent comes out and does their initial,
And they did that.
their initial inspection of the home, there could be an instance where everything that the damage that's there may not all be surface damage. So your the contractor, when they're pulling off the roof, if the decking is worse than expected and it must be replaced, but it wasn't in your initial insurance quote, the contractor would work with the insurance agent to do that change to say, I need to replace this to make sure that it's code compliant, because it is a requirement for the shingle manufacturer that that you're attaching it to good decking.
Well, that's good, because that was one of our concerns. We went ahead and deposited those checks. We have, you know, they're labeled for each of the house and all. And, but I thought, well, if we get a contractor, and we haven't, you know, and say, well, we've got $4,000 to do this, we wouldn't pay them right then. I imagine if they've got to get down and look and see if there's worse damage.
And it's a good idea when if you have insurance damage, don't say, I have this amount of money to do this job, you know. Let them bid out the work that needs to be done. Let them assess what needs to be done, and then you guys can work from there. If you want to work, they can. There's more times than not during insurance claims, there's back and forth between a licensed contractor and the insurance company if necessary.
Well, that was kind of my question, because I think that would be right, you know, and I just thought, well, you don't just tell somebody right now, we've got this much money and we'll pay you this to do it, because if they get into it or put a roof on top of a roof that should have been removed, that wouldn't be good either.
And it is a code requirement that so if you have, that you're on roofs, they have to go down to decking. You're no longer allowed to stack the roofs. So if you have roof on top of roof, that's no longer allowed. That's not a code compliant roof at that point. Should be tearing it down to decking, putting it back.
Okay, well, that's really helpful. Thank you.
If something, a job, however a house was constructed or some modification to a house was within code at the time it was done, but is no longer in code at this time, can I assume, is it assumed to be grandfathered in as long as you don't make a modification? So basically, as long as you're not modifying it, it didn't take damage, you're not fixing it, you don't have to go back and change it. It's grandfathered in.
So we consider, if you're not working on, there may be a basement that was finished 15 years ago. Doesn't mean you need to go back and bring it up to current code every time we update a code.
Until you want to do something with it.
It's if you go in and modify that basement, then decide I want to remodel the basement, then it needs to meet current. It needs to meet current codes at that point. But if you're doing an addition over here, and then you don't have to bring this side of the home up to code because you're not touching that area.
However, the big tension right now is the fact that there have been recent changes for re-roof guidelines, and since it's taking regional 4 to 5 months sometimes to do the inspections, they're holding contractors to the guidelines that are in force now, even though the roofs were done 4 or 5 months ago, and that code wasn't in force at that time. So now they're failing inspections left and right, saying that they're not compliant with that. And so they're requiring contractors to go back and resolve that.
Are you referring to the felt?
There was a meeting between the El Paso County Roofing Association and Regional. Only 2 roofers knew about it in time to be able to go. And so, like, we're in the dark as to what the requirements are. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to
No, and that
hijack
meeting
your
was
meeting.
actually not something that was scheduled by Regional Building. We didn't actually know about it until last minute as well. So I feel your frustration on that. And we did go and try to address some of those issues that people were having on that matter. Our guidelines for roofing, while we can maybe talk after the class, our guidelines have actually not changed in the last few months, but our inspectors are being very diligent to ensure that we are enforcing those requirements that have been in effect since the new adoption took place.
And just a correction on that, I think it was El Paso County Roofing Association was there, but it was actually a different group, Southern Colorado roofers, that I believe put that meeting together. We got word of it and we were there, and as well as El Paso. I think the president of El Paso County Roofing Association was there. But yeah, so we were there and we did try to work with everyone. There are some avenues that we have put together for roofers to move forward on some of those. But the felt issue that Rebecca mentioned was from an old code, not a new code.
Yeah, let's definitely, after class, we can touch base and go over the specifics of that you're questioning on the code. Yeah.
But I am very specifically interested in that because, as I said, the person I worked with, they had been in business for a while and they had an excellent reputation, even with the Better Business Bureau, but they decided to use this storm to change their business plan and do something different. Even though I pushed, because when my husband and I had purchased the house, we did a lot of work on it, and we replaced all the windows. And because of the delay we had at that point in time, I pushed windows first. The roof, it's not that bad, the damage. The windows first, push for that. I didn't get that. They went for the roof first, because that was his primary work, roofing. Another subcontractor, a local business, handled the windows. They botched the order twice, and the second time, it was basically, no, I don't want to take this into a civil suit because I know what that entails. And really, the plan was to sell the house and leave. So, okay, I'm concerned about this because the roof was done in like September. The windows didn't finally get installed until the beginning of February. And of course, it's got to be inspected by the insurance company. The mortgage company wants to inspect it. And of course, I'm trying to get it on the market. So is there going to be a problem? Because you mentioned that change. Is there a change date in the code that I need to be aware of, and an issue I need to start addressing now?
There shouldn't be. Without seeing your specific roof or having any information on your project,
Okay.
Assuming that the contractor followed the requirements of the manufacturer as well as the code,
I mean, it's
should be
September,
fine.
so I should be within the...
Yes, we have, we do many roofs every day, and a lot of them are from 2018, unfortunately, trying to catch up. We have thousands and thousands still in the queue and more called in every day. And they're passing. There are few that are having issues, and the department works with those contractors to try to get to resolution, and there's several paths that a contractor can take if there was to be an issue.
But I believe the last when it comes to roofing in particular, it was June 1 so September would have been after that.
We had a former coworker who had a basement that they finished out, never pulled permits, had bedrooms down there, et cetera. They were required to remove those walls before they sold the home because they couldn't legally call them bedrooms, I guess. So is that something that when they do the home inspection, that because there were no permits pulled, is that common?
So that's tricky. So during real estate transaction, there's a few different scenarios. So I don't know how, but there is still lots of basement finishes in this town that are done without permit. So when you, me too. So when there is a basement that's done without a permit and there's a real estate transaction pending and a home inspector comes out and says, hey, there's no permits on this basement, It can go a few ways. If you call regional building and we search and say, no, there's no permit of record, we also check the assessor's website to see if the assessor's already logged that square footage. If the assessor's already logged it, then that property is already being taxed on that. So we may say, we're not going to require it. That doesn't mean that the buyer isn't going to want it as part of their concessions to purchase. So if the real estate transaction is requiring that you pull a permit for that basement or that section of the basement, then yes, you would need to get a permit. We try very hard not to make someone dismantle their basement. If there is a mech room that's unfinished and you can see that those walls are floating, and then no walls need to be torn down. If we can verify electrical from there, we try to minimize the impact. Now you do have to remove the toilet to make sure plumbing, different things like that, pull off the expose the outlets a little bit so that we can check those, but we try to do minimal impact. If a home part of the deal was permit or take it out, that may have been the situation in that real estate transaction. So each case is very different and very specific, and we are never going to force someone to completely wreck the basement and then rebuild it. We'll try to work with the homeowner as best they can to get it inspected. So there's a few different scenarios, and if those come up, contact regional building and we can walk you through them.
We had a former coworker who had that situation, and then a current high school student who works part-time for us. It was being paid to finish a basement. He's 18, doesn't have any licenses. Yeah, so it's kind of like, really?
That's why I'm curious. Yeah, that's a little different than having the 18-year-old mow your lawn and paint your house for you. So you want to be careful, because there are specific codes. The walls do need to be floated in a basement. So there's a few things that can go south on a basement. While it is something we see routinely, there is things that can go left. Yeah, well, that's all you can do, right?
We appreciate that.
Did you want to add anything?
I'm sorry, just because from the law office side, I've encountered that and a lot here. And it's all I will say is that any unpermitted work, if it's out of code, if it's not permitted and it needed to be permitted, when you go to sell that house, it is going to add to your legal fees considerably. It's just creates a nightmare.
That's one of the things that we remind everyone as far as the reason for getting a permit sometimes. A lot of the big questions we get is, well, this is my house. Why do I need to get a permit to do work on my house? And it's like, well, you have to think about the future. What happens if you sell that home 30 years down the road and you run into these selling of, did I permit that, or is that permitted and whatnot? So that's one of the many reasons you really do need to get a permit for that work.
Another something I want to mention quickly is an instance that we see where complaints get brought to our attention or unlicensed contractors get brought to light is when we'll issue a stop work order on a property. It's okay.
Dog's hungry.
And a stop work order is something that our inspectors, Luke happens to be a non-compliance inspector that issues those, is when we receive notice or we see work going on without a permit. And a lot of times, believe it or not, a neighbor may turn in another neighbor when they see work going on. And when that happens, a lot of times it's brought to light, well, Jim Bob said it was fine, and so then you have an issue that's brought to light through the stop work order, and you also have something that has, a timeline on it that we want to, and that's another mechanism for us to get these contractors into compliance and make sure that these homes are safe. So if you ever receive one of those, that's also another very good sign if you hired a contractor that he's not licensed, or she.
Comment. I think probably someone came down and got a permit not too long ago in Green Mountain Falls, and they ran into trouble adding a deck to a house, and they just did it. And in Green Mountain Falls, it turned out they were not in compliance with the next property. So they had to tear down 3 feet of the deck and start over because they didn't even check with the local people first.
Sounds like they didn't make it through zoning, Green Mountain
That's
Falls
right.
zoning.
They didn't even try. They maybe they got a permit from you all, but then, you know what I'm saying, that each little town has its own things.
Yeah, and we won't issue a deck permit without the zoning authority in that jurisdiction saying that it's okay, because the deck would still need to meet setback requirements, making sure that they're not on any, they're on the correct lot lines, you know, that sort of thing. So those do play in, and we make sure that no permits are issued. While they could get their plans approved, without the zoning authority approval, they can't get a permit.
They got their plans approved maybe and started. All right, well, I mean, they were noticed by, you know, it's just a little village, and so I don't know. I mean, these people own a lot of other properties, and so they just kind of were doing what they wanted to do.
Yeah, there's so many different scenarios that I see on a day-to-day basis when it comes to complaints, so many variations, so many situations, whether they got a permit or they didn't get a permit, or they were reputable or they were unknown. It's not, you can't be 100% all the time, but if you kind of try to be mindful, do the research, do as much as you can to be an informed homeowner, it may save some heartburn down the road, and if it doesn't, that's where we're here to help.
And that's what this class is all about. We're trying to get everybody more knowledgeable, and then you'll be that much more comfortable whenever you are looking to hire a contractor or do the work yourself. One more video. Okay. We got one more video for you guys. Maybe.
Experts say unlicensed contractors will often try to pressure you into signing a contract right away.
In order to prevent getting scammed on home repairs, the Pikes Peak Regional Building Department says to make sure your contractor is licensed. And if a contractor pushes you to sign a contract quickly or asks you to pull the permit yourself, those are red flags to watch out for.
You research anybody you're going to use. And it's not my first rodeo, so I'm careful about everything like that.
If a contractor asks you as the homeowner to pull the permit, it's cheaper, it's quicker, it's faster, that's a good indicator for a homeowner that they may not be licensed, because our permit fees are the same whether you're licensed or you're a homeowner.
Now this is key. You can check with the Regional Building Department to make sure a contractor is licensed anytime on their website.
So just a couple things there. We've kind of already covered all of that, but just wanted to reiterate it. And obviously thanks to our friends in the media for continuing to cover this, because this is such an important issue for our community. And unfortunately, we are going to get more hailstorms in the future. It's going to continue, and it's going to be something that we'll continue to deal with. So we are going to continue to try to get the word out the best that we can. And we appreciate you guys coming in, and we certainly still have some time, so you have more questions.
I did want to really quick go over how to search a contractor on our website so that you guys can check that. You can even do it while someone's at your home. You can do it on the spot. It's real time. When you go to our website, www.pprbd.org, you're going to go to Contractors, search Contractors, and then you can do it two ways. You can search the name specifically that you are looking for, or you can select it by the trade. So if you want to look at roofing contractors building, it's a building license, and then you will scroll down to roofing, There's a few, so it gives it a minute. And then you can then view all the roofing contractors, see their liability, workman's comp status, how long they've, see that their license is active and in good standings, a good contact number for them, and be able to go into the details page to get more information from there. That way you can view and get your information on the spot, even on a weekend when we may not be available.
I had a question. I actually pulled up that if you look at Hayden Construction, I just had a question. It's in red as far as their general liability and workman's comp from 2006, but it still shows they're active. So I was just curious as to, I understand that in red's probably expired, but if those things weren't updated.
Hayden Construction?
I think that it's under commercial. I mean, it's under commercial B1, B2 building.
Is this the one?
112606, yeah, that's it.
Okay. So there's a few different rules that play into the status of a contractor's license. If a contractor doesn't have active insurance, it shuts them down. With regional building, you can't call in inspections, you can't pull permits without having active insurance with us, so that automatically will expire their license as far as the status in our system when you're viewing them online. Because we want to make sure that the homeowners know that this contractor, while they do have a current license with expired insurance, they cannot work here. So that's why what the information we are
I
providing.
just want to make sure I could read that accurately, because I'm thinking, why would that be in red from 06? Okay.
Yeah, and it may be that that contractor wants to maintain his license but is not active in the community. So he's, in a sense, set himself onto a voluntary suspension, but that also has requirements that have to be fulfilled within the licensing department.
So if it's red anywhere, they can't pull a permit, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Oh, yeah. First of all, it looks very different on this than on that. I did a search for contractor licenses, and the first link that it pulled up didn't work. Oh, come on. I have to find this again. So, did you want to?
And it will look a little bit different on a phone because it is our mobile version. So it won't be, it'll be more compressed, but the content should be still there the same.
Yeah. Did you want to show me? I'm sorry, or? Oh, no, you're bringing the microphone. Okay, and there was another question before you brought up that I had wanted to, and now I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh, okay. As far as subcontractors go, can I assume that all subcontractors also must be licensed to do the work that they are doing?
Depending on what the sub-trade is. So if electrical, mechanical, plumbing, yes. If you are, say, building a new home, if the woman to your left, when she's building her home, if she hires, pulls the permit herself as a homeowner, but hires a company strictly for framing, framing is not something that we license for. So we license general contractors. So framing would be a sub-trade that would fall under her as the homeowner. So they wouldn't have their own license, but her mechanical sub, her electrical sub, her plumbing sub all would have a license that is required. The concrete contractor that pours her driveway won't have a license, those kind of things. So it depends on what the sub is doing.
Well, it depends on, yeah, whether they're, yeah.
So is it just electrical, mechanical, and plumbing that have to be licensed?
When you're building a new home, then those are the four. If you're going to have a fireplace, the fireplace contractor also needs to be licensed. Any other questions? All right, well, I really appreciate you guys coming out and listening to that. If you have any other questions or anything specific afterwards, we will be around, and we really appreciate it if you'd fill out the survey and make sure to take your goodies with you on the way out. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, next class is at 3 o'clock, and that is going to be on our website navigation. So we already did a little bit with you guys as far as showing you how to search for the contractor, but we'll be able to go through a lot of the other popular items that people are typically looking for. And again, that starts at 3 o'clock, and don't forget to fill out those cards and leave us some comments if you don't mind too. We're really wanting to try to build on these open house classes. This is our second one that we've done, and we of course want to make it bigger and better as we move forward. Anything else, guys? Thank you very much.